What is up guys, welcome back to another GeekaWhat video, and in today's video I'm going to be building the ultimate 1440p gaming PC build. A system that's going to smash through all of the latest AAA titles, delivering super high frame rates, combines some great looking components while keeping those upgrade paths nice and open, a build packed with RGB and great visuals inside of a brand new case from Thermaltake that I actually think looks pretty special. As always, I'll be walking you through all the parts I've selected and why, showing you guys how to put this build together, and we're hopefully gonna have a lot of fun along the way. So without any further ado, let's dive into it. Now I'm gonna start today's build in the same way that I start pretty much all of my builds, and that's by installing as many components as possible into the motherboard. Now for this build, I've gone for this, the Gigabyte AORUS X870 Elite Wi-Fi 7. And if we open up the motherboard box, what you'll see is that this is a fairly modest X870 motherboard that I don't want to say sits on the budget end of the X870 spectrum, because that wouldn't really be fair, but it provides great value on the X870 platform, and that's really important. Now it's got a solid rear I/O with good connectivity, widespread PCI Gen 5 support, and this kind of like neutral all black color scheme that's just going to blend in really nicely with the build that I'll be assembling today. Now as always, the first thing I'm going to install into the motherboard is this, the CPU. Now I've gone for the AMD Ryzen 7 9800X3D. And when you see the graphics card I've selected today, you might think, hang on a minute, James, in a recent video where I discussed the best CPUs you can buy right now, I called this CPU overkill for this graphics card. And in truth, at 4K, and even in some games 1440p, that's true. But this is a build where I wanted to prioritize super high 1440p frame rates, competitive performance at 1080p, and of course those low resolutions, that's where the CPU becomes more important. If you're planning on using this build, but you want to perhaps only game at 4K, or you're not bothered about those competitive frame rates, you might be better off with something like a 7800X3D from last generation, or even a Ryzen 5 9600X. I'll put all the details on alternative CPU choices and stuff in our website write-up in the cards now, where you can also find performance data for this system. What I'm going to do is install the CPU into the CPU socket at the top of the board. This is nice and easily done by matching up the triangle on the processor with the triangle on the motherboard and securing the socket cover into place. Following on from the processor, the next part to talk about is this, the memory. Now in today's build, I've gone for 32 gigabytes, actually from Thermaltake, who kindly sent out the case and the fans and stuff for this build at my request, so thanks to them for that. Now obviously, memory in the current market is a bit of a tricky one, in the sense that we're currently in a massive shortage, we're currently seeing widespread price fluctuations, and essentially my advice is the same as in all of my recent videos. If you're building this system and you're upgrading from a current DDR5 build, just stick with what you've got for now until prices fall. Now in terms of installing the memory, that's pretty easy in this build. Second and fourth RAM DIMM slots are where we're going to be, and it's a simple case of sliding the RAM DIMM in without really any drama. Bit of pressure on both sides to ensure it clicks down, and just note that the notch sort of off-centered on the memory is just that. It's off-centered. So normally what you'll see is the clean side of the memory faces away from the CPU, and the side where you've got any labels and stuff faces towards the CPU and is hidden. Nice and simple. Memory is sorted. The next task is to move on to our NVMe slot just here. That's toolless in this motherboard, as we see pretty much on all boards nowadays, so we can take that off, and that gives me a good opportunity to talk about this. Kioxia's, I kept calling this drive the Exceria, but it's not, is it? It's the Exceria, the Exceria Plus. Now this right here is a Gen 5 drive, but confusingly is called the Exceria Plus G4. Not sure about the naming scheme on that. The good news is though, performance is very good. I've reviewed this drive, was pretty impressed with it. This particular model is 2 terabytes, which I honestly think is kind of perfect for the build today. That slides into the top M.2 slot, a little something like so. Push it down, the toolless notch will kind of latch into place, and then it's a simple case of reinstalling the M.2 heatsink and getting that secured down for good measure. Now that's the motherboard assembly pretty much done, and what that means is we can go ahead and move this into the case now, and I'm going to worry about the cooler and the graphics card and power supply afterwards. And that gives me a great opportunity to talk to you guys about the case, and this right here comes in from Thermaltake and looks so far pretty awesome. Specifically, this is their View 370 TG ARGB. Now it lives in a standard kind of ATX form factor, I guess, but what you get is this nice wraparound glass all around the front and the sides. This kind of like approach where they've got it angled on both sides is something I've not really seen before, and I have to admit, I quite like it. All of the panels are basically completely toolless, which is awesome. And if I take the panels off, that's going to give us a bit of a closer look at how this case is actually built. Inside, we've got a triple 120mm fan unit. That's right, this is a singular kind of assembly, if you will. These are all reverse blades and ARGB as standard. We get a reverse ARGB fan installed at the back as well, of the same style as the one on the sides. The top of the case, you've got room for up to a 360mm radiator in exhaust, so that's nice too. You can even modify this bottom section here by adding in a screen if you wish, and even that is toolless. Reverse connect motherboard support is present for good measure, and you can even fit graphics cards of up to 420mm in length. This thing is pretty feature packed. Most importantly though, for this step of the build, it's got room for this, our ATX motherboard. Now, all of the standoffs in this case are in the right place out of the box. We've got 3 at the top, 3 along the middle, and 3 down the bottom. And actually, interestingly, not just one of the standoffs is actually raised, but 2 of them are raised. And what that means is sliding the motherboard into the case, getting that rear I/O shield to poke through the back is very, very easy. Once the board's in, all I'm going to do next is screw it down with 9 screws in total. And all of the screws that you need come included in this little accessory bag or box, if you will, with the case as standard. That's 3 screws at the top, 3 screws along the middle, and 3 screws down the bottom for good measure. The next step, once the motherboard is in, I think is going to be to do the power supply installation. The reason I'm going to do this now, and then also the front panel cables and wiring, is because it will make installing the cooler a bit easier, and it means we can do the graphics card at the end. It's kind of like a bit of a reward for all of the hard work in today's build. Now, this right here is Thermaltake's Toughpower PT 850 watt, and it's got everything you're going to need from a power supply. It's got PCI Gen 5.1 and ATX 3.1 support. It's got a 10-year warranty. It's 80 plus platinum rated, and this particular unit is 850 watts, as I say, which is going to be fine for today's build. Really, for the 9070 XT, you're looking at 750 watts or higher. The extra 100 watts is not necessarily required. It just gives you a little bit of headroom for the future. Now, inside the power supply box, what you'll find is a bag of included cables, and it looks like, straight off the bat, Thermaltake are a brand who have jumped on this train of giving you better cables in modular power supplies. Look at this, so you can see that the motherboard power cable is kind of like pre-combed. It's not the quality you're going to find necessarily from super expensive PSU cable extensions. However, it's going to look good in a build like this, and in my opinion, means you don't really need to go out and buy aftermarket units to make the build look that little bit smarter. What you are going to want though is a few cables, and I'm going to walk you through what they are. The first cable is this one here. This is the motherboard power cable. You can see it's the largest of the bunch. One of the ends is actually split into 2. That's this end just here, and that's going to go into the power supply. I'm also going to install one of these CPU power connectors. You can see it's CPU because it's labeled, well, CPU. In fact, I'm not just going to install one of these, I'm going to install 2. So somewhere in here, we should find a second one. Yep, so there we go. We have a second CPU power cable. I'm also going to pop in a PCI power cable, but it's going to be the old school type. So you can see here, it's like a 6 plus an extra 2 pins. I much prefer the new PCI Gen 5 standard, but that's only really used by Nvidia at the moment. And I think like 1 Sapphire AMD graphics card. So for today's build, we're going old school. I may or may not need a SATA power cable as well. These are for your kind of old school hard drives and old 2.5-inch SSDs, but very often they're used for powering things like ARGB hubs and stuff like that. I don't think this case needs one. If we put the screen in the front, that might require one. Let's just put it in, and then we have the option later. The extra cables, don't bin these. Keep these safe in this nice included bag, or put them in your motherboard box so that in future, if you do want to upgrade the build, you change out the GPU in a few years, you never know, you've got the cables that you're going to need to actually do that. Connect all of the power supply cables up to the power supply, and then install the power supply into the bottom of the case. There's vents on the bottom and the top, but I'll have the fan facing down to pull in fresh air from under the chassis. I'm then going to go ahead and show you guys how to wire this system up, starting with the CPU power cables, which go up to the connectors on the top left corner of the motherboard, the big motherboard power cable, which goes over to the right hand side, and then the front panel cables. That starts with the JFP1 front panel. They go to the bottom right hand corner of the motherboard, HD audio, which goes down to the bottom left, and then the USB 3 Type A and Type C. Type A is thinner but taller. That goes down the bottom of the motherboard. USB Type C is kind of smaller overall, but a bit more thick and stubby, and that goes a little higher up, again on that right hand side of the motherboard today. You can get those all tidied away and looking neat at the back of the motherboard as you wish. Now, the build is really starting to come together. I must admit, I'm liking how that looks. But the next stage is cooling. Now, I've got this, the Thermaltake MAGCurve 360 Ultra, and if you see, it's got a curved screen. I wonder where we may have seen that before. However, to give it the benefit of the doubt, it looks pretty good, and I'm excited to see what the software is like, what the resolution of the display is like, and all that good stuff. But what I kind of realized when I got this is, well, the fans, they don't really match the rest of the build. So there's going to be a few fan changes afoot, I think. Now, inside of the cooler box, what you're going to find is you're going to find these Toughram EX fans. But what's interesting about these is that they actually feature Thermaltake's swappable blade technology. So rather than like with other brands where you actually buy the fans in normal or reverse mode, Thermaltake will actually give you, potentially, if I can get them out, replacement blades for the fans, which you can pretty easily swap out. And I'll show you here, you just normally push the existing blades out of the fan, there we go, which reveals the fan hub, and then you can pop the reverse blades into place. And that got me thinking, these would be perfect for the intake on the case, where we've currently got this all-in-one fan block, which I actually do think looks quite nice. And then I've gone ahead and picked up a standard pack of the Toughram EX without the extra fan blades, which I'm going to use for the radiator to replace the exhaust fan, and I'm also going to pop 3 down the bottom here as well. So before I install the liquid cooler, I think it's time for a signature GeekaWhat Montage, where we get all these fans sorted out and installed, and then I'll be back with you to finally install the AIO. Okay, so that feels like a bit of progress, and the next step is to finish off the CPU cooler. The bottom fans, the side, the top, back fan, they all look really, really good and tie in very nicely with one another. Now inside the cooler, we've got the screen module, which is like a separate thing that we add on later, so let's keep that safe for now. We've got all of our various mounting hardware. Again, I'm probably going to need that. Ow! Some very sharp fan blades from earlier that I've not put away very well. And then in here, we've got our radiator and pump. Now, let's take off packaging material and then get a bit of a closer look at what we're working with. Now, we've got, of course, our radiator, so we're going to have it with the tubes at the front of the case. We're then going to have our fans on the radiator, so they can go a little something like that. I'm going to put the cable at the back, as that's going to make it nice and easy to hide out the way. And then I need to find out what the mounting hardware situation is for AMD processors, which is, of course, what we'll be using in today's build. Now, the good news for you guys is that the cooler actually leverages the stock pre-installed AMD mounting hardware. Bad news for me is that I've got it in my hand here because I actually removed it in a previous build with this board. So I'm going to re-secure that back into place, then guide you through the rest of the cooler process. But you guys won't have to do this step. Once that's sorted, I'm then going to secure the fans down to the radiator using the included radiator screws, and then add the AMD bracket onto the CPU water block itself. I'm then going to go ahead and actually install the radiator into the top of the case. That's going to leave a little something like this, and of course I'm going to wire this cable so it's out the way too. Then it's a simple case of adding a little bit of thermal paste onto the processor, a little something like so. Thermaltake give you a bit extra, so if you ever need to replace the cooler for whatever reason, you can do that. And then the actual brackets just click on to the stock AMD mounting hardware, and once they're on, they can be quite fiddly, but I'll get you a closer shot so you can see exactly how it should look. To get you guys a little bit of a closer look, you can see here that that bracket just kind of sits on top of the notch on the stock mounting hardware, and the same goes for the bottom just there. These screws are going to be tightened up, and that's going to clamp it over the top of the processor. It's not my favorite mounting hardware method, but it does work. The trickiest bit is just tightening the bottom and the top screws as evenly as you possibly can, just to avoid one of them popping off. And then the screen module can click onto place. And I think, is this where maybe I've put the cooler on the wrong way? I guess the screen should really be the other way, shouldn't it? Yes, okay. Is there a photo on the box? Yes, okay, give me a minute and I'm gonna flip it round. Oh no. There we go, we finally got it the right way round. I did just need to manage some of those cables actually. Oh no, hang on, I don't. This doesn't have any cables. The cables are all coming from the actual block itself. With that done and looking, I think, pretty nice, the final piece of the puzzle is the big one. It's the GPU. Now, I'll be diving into performance of this exact build in a few moments anyway, but basically the 9070 XT is one of my favorite cards that not only AMD, but any GPU manufacturer, Nvidia and even Intel, have ever made. It's got 16 gigs of memory, fantastic 1440p performance, great legs at 4K too. AMD's FSR tech is not as good as Nvidia DLSS, but the rasterization is quicker. You're going to get better performance than what you'll find, generally speaking, from the 5070 Ti at a lower price point. This thing is just one of my absolute favorites. Now, I've gone a little bit high end in this build. I've gone for this AORUS design to match the motherboard. Again, in truth, graphics cards are something that have been actually less affected by the price hikes than maybe we feared at the start of the year, but they have still been affected nonetheless. So my advice remains as it is, kind of a memory. Any model of this card will be fine. Any 9070 XT you can buy that matches the build, that you like the look of, that's got good reviews, is going to work well. Now, I'm going to hover the GPU into place in the build today, and yeah, that looks amazing. This build is really shaping up to be better than I kind of imagined. Obviously, I go into every build wanting it to look good, but I think this could look absolutely amazing. And one thing, by the way, that I need to give Thermaltake a massive shout out for in this video is the case fan support. Very often when we see these kind of like aquarium-y fish tank cases in the standard mid-tower where the power supply is at the bottom, we don't get room for 3 fans at the bottom. We don't get room for 3 120s at the side. Yes, it's a snug fit, but it is a fit nonetheless, and I think it looks really good. These fans, by the way, are going to be epic for GPU temperatures. Like, that's going to be awesome when it comes to GPU temps in this build. Now, I'm going to slide the GPU into place, a little something like so. Bit of pressure, happy days, and then use the same screws that I just took out for the PCI lanes to, well, secure it into place. That's nice and easily done. A little something like so. And then once that's in, the final step that remains is to get the GPU power wired up. I tend to go up from kind of anywhere below the GPU. Do we have some suitable cable routes? Yes, we do. This is the only thing in the build that I fear could get a little bit messy. 3 8-pins, not my favorite. Now we need to use one with what we call the pigtail. So that's like the extra connector that comes off the end. So let's pop that one in the middle, try and make it kind of symmetrical. There we go. And then we're going to use the final one without the pigtail. So what we're going to do is get that in. Have I said how much I hate this connection standard yet? Like, really, when you've got 3 on a card, it's just so painful. What I'm going to do is sort of cable tie that in, try and hide the pigtail in there, and then have some form of mental breakdown. Before that, it's time to check out performance and, of course, how this build looks in what's probably going to be today a pretty epic GeekaWhat montage. Oh, and I might even put a screen in the front as well because we haven't got enough screens in this build, evidently. And that is what you call a gaming PC, but just look how good it looks. The screens in here actually work quite nicely, I think. What I will say is that Thermaltake software does really need some work. It is functional, and we managed to get it working to get all the screens looking how we wanted them to, but it's certainly a little bit more basic and definitely not as easy to use as it could be. Now, in terms of performance, let's take a look, shall we, at the numbers and start with the gameplay at 1440p before moving up to that higher 4K resolution. Now, let's begin with Battlefield 6. At 1440p high settings, we saw an average frame rate of 166 frames per second on average. Gameplay was smooth. This is a game that I think looks really, really good, and I'd be tempted to actually play at 4K on this system, especially given those 1440p frames are so high. It was a similar positive story in the new Resident Evil Requiem. Here, the average frame rate at 1440p high settings clocked in at 151 frames per second. 1 and 0.2% lows was solid too, and visually the game looked pretty great. Finally, at 1440p, before looking at the 4K testing, we looked at Cyberpunk 2077 using the in-game benchmark mode. An older title, but one that's easy to compare, and here we saw an average frame rate of 156 FPS. Pretty easy if you want to go through some of the older builds I put together and see how they perform comparative to this. In Marvel's Rivals at 4K high, our first game at that higher resolution, frame rates do drop a fair chunk. Here we see just 80 FPS, which is enough for some people, but many of you may find that 1440p resolution to be a better shout in a title like this. In Pragmata, where I think the higher resolution is actually better than perhaps a higher frame rate at 4K high, we see a similar but slightly improved FPS with an average of 86.1 to be precise. While finally in Arc Raiders, I think we get the best of both worlds. A frame rate at 4K high settings that clocks in at over 100 FPS at 106.6, giving you enough frame rate but with the advantages of the higher resolution. I'll leave links to all the parts for Amazon and Newegg in the description below for latest pricing. And of course, you can read a write-up of this build over on GeekaWhat.com if you wish to. Thanks for watching, and as always, we'll see you in the next one.